everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this week's video we visit one of the 3 castles of Gwent here at White Castle. Whilst some castles and ruins are more mysterious than others, they all possess a rich history that went into the making of Wales as it is today. A land of natural beauty with a strong history and the resilience to overcome the hardships it once knew. The 3 castles, all in Monmouthshire, share a great deal of history together dating right back to the 11th century. With various owners throughout their time, as well as a highly active military presence, their battles and uprisings during their glory days were the ones that made the history books. White Castle is one of these castles, possibly the most well preserved ruin of the 3, so join us while we explore at White Castle. During our visit you pass through the now crumbled outer gatehouse and into the inner ward before making our way inside to the castle. The outer ward was where the real life of a working castle could be produced, manufactured and made, and it's thanks to the buildings in the outer ward that would enable the smooth running and making sure that the castle was always well equipped and well supplied. The surrounding curtain wall boasts 4 projecting towers, all 2 stories high, with a battlemented wall walk. One of the 2 towers was designed for a more individual basis though. It had an upper room that was formed into small lodgings, equipped with a fireplace and latrine. More than likely for a household official or quartermaster that would have been responsible for the troops and the supplies that were housed in the inner ward. Now the area is beautiful and grassy and perfect for a picnic in the modern day, but in the Middle Ages there are geophysical surveys that have found the foundations here of a huge rectangular building, thought to have been a barn where the produce of the estate would be processed and stored, as well as the foundations of more buildings, such as kitchens, workshops for tradesmen, a market hall where people could come and trade their goods, and small manor houses. Stepping onto the bridge we make our way inside the inner gatehouse and to the castle itself. The inner ward is surrounded by an impressive and quite beautiful water-filled moat, cut deep into the red sandstone and marl. The modern timber bridge we walk on lies on top of a medieval original, which spans the moat. The original was only half the length of the present one, because half of it would have been a drawbridge pit. The bridge would have only extended as far as the outer edge of the pit, which could then be turned into a liftable drawbridge. The 2 huge circular towers flank and impose mightily on the front of the entrance inside, which is really quite impressive. Entering inside the eastern tower on the left shows us the traces of the once spiral stair that would lead up to the upper floors of this 4-storied high tower. On the right hand side of the inner gatehouse, which was known as the West Tower, which unfortunately is closed off, but you can still see that it would have been entered via the short flight of steps and into the doorway. Its layout is nearly the same as the Eastern Tower. You can see the spiral staircase that would enable access upstairs. Interestingly, as we have a peek inside, the stair up is arranged in short separate flights, thought to be constructed in such a way that would give greater protection to attackers trying to force their way upstairs. Inside the inner ward of the castle, you are able to see and explore the remains of the domestic buildings to keep the castle self-sufficient in times of trouble. Near the 4th tower you can see the remnants of the combined malt house and bakehouse, with its rectangular malting kiln and a circular bread oven side by side. Malt would be made by roasting barley, boiled off to make beer for the castle and its inhabitants. The long and narrow building beyond was probably the kitchen for the food and the drink to be made simply for the lord and his guests when required. Amazingly, Wales is home to some 600 estimated castles, 16 of them residing in Monmouthshire. The naturally strategic landscape of the countryside and its access to water are all part of the reason. Normans and earlier Romans saw great potential in this and wanted to benefit from the natural advantages that it could bring them in battle. The ongoing battles, revolts and uprisings of Wales over the centuries are another reason for the many castles across the country. They served as fortresses and a means to control movement across the land from the south. White Castle, along with Grosmont and Skenfrith, was built in the later part of the 11th century. After the Battle of Hastings in 1066, William Fitzosborne, the Earl of Hereford, took ownership of the stronghold, which was then made of timber and earth. Its location was beneficial for spotting potential incoming invaders, and it provided expansive views of the land. After a very short time possessing White Castle, William Fitzosborne died in 1071. Osborne's son, Roger de Breteuil, was the obvious inheritor, but de Breteuil was denied the three castles after his rebellion and attempt to overthrow his father during the Norman invasion. This meant that White Castle would now be placed into the hands of the Crown, where it remained for a short period of time. Though its first construction was established in the 11th century, it would not become the famous stone-walled White Castle that is widely known today, until almost 200 years later. White Castle's purpose was first to be a stronghold, protecting the invaders and providing an advantage through its location and its architecture. It has since been the grounds of many battles and the residence of many owners, including royalty. The unique circular architecture was the example used by King Edward I when he went on to build more fortresses in northern Wales. The stone construction that came later, in the 13th century, comprised of a very particular architecture that was created to make the inner castle impenetrable. The inner wall was surrounded by a deep, steep walled moat, the outer wall and four towers that easily viewed the entire surrounding landscape for miles. A fortress made of stone with almost every possible advantage was the intention that went into the rebuilding of the castle. Considering how well preserved it stands today, it seems as if the plan was a success. The early 13th century brought much change for White Castle. The three castles were given to Hubert de Burgh by King John at a time when White Castle was a less sought after fortress than it would eventually become. Used primarily as a military installation and a garrison that possessed large stores of weapons including arrows and bolts for crossbows, the conditions at this time were said to have been quite miserable. While in the process of remodelling the three castles, possession was taken from Hubert de Burgh by King John. Instead, the king gave them to the rival of Hubert's, William de Braose. Upon falling out with de Braose in 1207, King John then took back the three castles, only to have them retaken by de Braose's son, also named William. Once Hubert de Burgh was released from French captivity, he returned to power and took back the three castles in 1219. In 1232, Hubert fell from power again, giving possession of the three castles, but this time to Walrond, who was a royal servant. Walrond remained in possession until 1234, when the three castles were returned to Hubert just once more, but only till 1239, when Hubert fell out with the crown for the last time. 1254 brought another change of ownership, with the three castles being given to King Henry's oldest son, who would later become King Edward. Much later on in the 19th century, the castle was sold off to Henry Somerset, the Duke of Beaufort. White Castle passed through the Somerset family over the next century, eventually becoming an informal tourist attraction in 1909. In 1922, White Castle was given to the state to care for and is now managed by Cadw. It remains a free tourist attraction for visitors to enjoy to this very day. At over 1,000 years old, it has seen countless encounters that made history in Wales and beyond. Once made of wood and earth, the stone-walled structure that people know of today is what made White Castle famous. Along with its two sister castles, together the three castles were an important element of Welsh history, eventually becoming part of an independent country that was once plagued by invaders of all kinds. With thanks to the accommodating lands of Wales, many a castle has been built within its borders. The ongoing battles and uprisings of the medieval age caused need for protection, and the castles provided just that. With the strategic terrain of mountains and valleys, along with the plentiful water supply, castles built in Wales served a great purpose and effectively protected their residents from attackers. It confuses me that White Castle is not better known. It seems an almost idyllic representation of a moated medieval castle. True, the interior remains are scanty, but the moated site, with its largely intact curtain walls and its corner towers, is a wonderful example of a 12th and 13th century castle. So that's it for this week, and we really hope that you've enjoyed a visit here with us. If you have, please be sure to hit that like button, click the notification bell so you'll never miss a video, and even press that subscribe button for more of our content. If you fancy supporting us and the channel further, have a look at our channel member options here on YouTube, or click on our Patreon and have a look. We want to say a big thank you to our members and our Patreons that support us and are part of the PIN family. So we'll see you on the next one. Till next time.